Hey, Mel here. So I left the ProductCamp SoCal barcamp, say that 10 times fast, a little early because I had to go pick up somebody at the airport. And now I'm finding myself with a little downtime while I'm waiting for my friend's plane to land. In any case, wanted to give you a quick update. The panel that I moderated with some great folks, Scott Schang, Stacey Harmon, Kirsten, Wright, and also Cindy Ronzoni. We had a great panel with a full house, actually, in our session. I think it held like 50 people. We had at least 50 people in the room, so that was great. And a lot of them also contributed some ideas, much to the culture of what a bar camp is, right? The idea was that the panelists themselves are not the only presenters, but if you've never been to a bar camp, it ends up being one of those things where even the participants actually themselves also become presenters, presenting their own expertise and their own ideas and topics that they have and so on. So anyway, the idea here is when I kicked this thing off, I wanted to have just spur some ideas and some thoughts in everyone's mind to get some conversations going. And one of the things we were talking about that I brought up was just the idea that this whole thing with social media revolution, being a communication revolution, a paradigm shift, and all of these things isn't so much anymore the case that we have a revolution going on or that we're shifting. And to say these things in present tense is probably a little passé. Now, you tell me what you think about that, okay? But there's some thoughts in the crowd, in the audience that we had, that actually we are still shifting and we are still revolutionizing, that social media is, in present tense, continuing to change the way things are happening. Now, here's my position on all of this, because I don't think that's the case anymore. I mean, for me, don't get me wrong, I think social media is huge, it's great, gives us this whole other vehicle for communicating and building relationships and so on. And yes, it is changing in present tense some of the things that are going on in organizations. Like, for instance, you bring in social media, just the question of whether or not social media should be or should not be in an organizational structure, right? Some industries are still highly regulated. Some organizations are still highly regulated themselves. And whether or not to bring this new type of technology, this social technology, into their organization, brings about a new paradigm for them. Now, here's my point on that. That's not a social media thing. That's a technology thing. It's an organizational change management thing. Remember back in the 1980s, if you remember people like Michael Hammer, James Campy, Daryl Connor, these are all folks that I followed when I was doing the management consulting thing in organizational change management. And anytime we did a new technology implementation in a new organization, whether that be a customer relationship management system, a new marketing Salesforce system, or maybe it's just a new procurement management system or whatever, the whole idea is that whenever you put in new technologies into an organization, you are changing the way their process is managed in that organization. And that's not a social media thing. That's an organizational change management thing. It brings about ideas of job descriptions, new workforce restructuring, training issues, human resources issues. Brings about a whole a whole set of dynamics that, yes, changes the paradigm at that point for that organization. But is it a social media thing? You tell me. Is it unique to social media that we are continuing to change, that social media continues to change the paradigm in the landscape? Is it still a communication revolution, or have we already shifted? Have we already revolted in this paradigm shift, and it's no longer a continuing paradigm shift, but it is we've done shifted. We're now all trying to figure out, how do we make sense of this landscape, even as new people come in and they get this little light bulb over their head about what social media can do for them. It may be new for them, but for the hundreds of millions of people, some of you that are already using social media and have been for dang near a decade now, or at least half a decade, right? Is it really still, are we still shifting? Are we still revolutionizing? And is that unique to social media, or is it a technology and organizational change thing? You tell me.